on Channel Africa.
19 after 5. Let's get into our final chat of the afternoon. We're chatting movies on the upside.
And joining us now to have a conversation about friendship, survival, and rhino poaching. It's arrived at the Durban International Film Festival is Tom Datnow, who's the director, writer, producer, and lead actor, alongside Kathryn Datnow, who is the cast member, DoDatnowFilms company director, and executive producer. Thank you so much for joining us on the upside.
Lovely to be here, yeah, to be here.
So, Tom, let's start with something. You know, when I was looking at the cover of the film, right, I couldn't help but notice a juxtaposition. It reminded me of the warning crescent, right, which is the phase just before the full moon. And the fact that you have your side on, you know, your lighter side, of course, skin complexion and all, on one side, and then you had Kwenza on the other side, and it's poaching moon. Please fool my delusion that you guys did that intentionally.
No, absolutely, yeah, no, it's actually something that I know this is on the radio, but I've got that tattooed on my arm.
Oh, wow.
You and I both.
Yeah,
Tattoos are aligned. I'm so serious.
That's cool. Yeah, no, the sort of cycle of the moon, the lunar cycle, is something that I've been sort of fascinated by for a long time, and you know, it's sort of something that was very intentional in the film. You know, in terms of, you know, what happens to people, what happens to us under the power of the full moon and all its various cycles. I mean, you know, we could talk for hours about that, and I won't sort of chew your ear off about it. But I think that, you know, ultimately, you know, the moon affects the tides, affects, you know, our behavior, affects, you know, we're a planet made up of water. You know, we're partially water. You know, it's sort of, you can go really, really deep with this stuff. But the film really kind of explores, you know, what happens to people under the power of the moon, and the sort of monsters that potentially we can or cannot choose to become.
So Poacher's Moon is about friendship, survival, and rhino poaching, but it also brings together multiple languages and cultures. Chat to us about how challenging that was and what the outtakes were in terms of collaborating, you know, cross-continentally, how amazing that was for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, it's a film that encompasses a lot of different things. I think it's a film that kind of has a bit of, hopefully, something for everybody to sort of identify with. You know, we span, you know, various, you know, sort of races, colors, creeds, social, you know, economic backgrounds in the film, and I think, yeah, that collaboration of sort of bringing the, you know, our sort of, you know, I have a South African heritage as well, although I grew up between South Africa on the farm, actually, that we ended up shooting on half of the film, and London. And, you know, I think kind of blending those two worlds together, which was sort of, you know, really tied into kind of, I think, the etymology and the sort of birthing of the story, which really came from a deep semi-autobiographical place. You know, it really stems from my relationship with my closest childhood friend Michael, who I grew up with on our farm, and we were like brothers. And he tragically passed away when I was 17. And really, I think sort of everything that I've tried to do in, you know, theatre or film has been kind of has stemmed from that sort of jumping off point.
Kathryn, let's have a conversation about the decision to make the rhino really the vehicle for all this conversation to exist, because we see the moon, we see even the use of Poacher's Moon, but now you also see that little bit of a rhino kind of choosing, you know, a different side and kind of like appearing, especially in the cover art. Talk to us even about it being the center of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it was such an amazing kind of topic to explore, you know, humanity and survival, and, you know, what does it, you know, if you were put into a situation, what would you choose to do? We were trying to paint people as not, you know, black or white, good or bad. We were trying to paint a picture of survival, and Rhino Poaching was an incredible catalyst to do that, because, you know, it is quite an atrocious, you know, act to commit. But then when you do a lot of research into it, you realize that, you know, people can get paid $11,000 one night for doing it. So, you know, the socioeconomic backgrounds of people, and you know, the decisions that one person might make versus, you know, quite a privileged person may make, you know, a different decision and may judge that person. But you really have to, yeah, like go down to like the survival of human instinct and what would you do to keep your family alive, you know? Like Michael's character has a son who's extremely unwell, and you know, it kind of seems like the only thing that he can do in that situation. So yeah, it was an incredible eye opener for us as well, just to kind of explore something that many films explore, but on a quite a different kind of tangent. So yeah.
And also producing, especially executive producing a film like this that combines different cultures. You also don't want the cultures to kind of overtake the other or overpower. How did you create that balance in the film?
Yeah, do you want to take that in?
Yeah, I mean, I just also wanted to just sort of say on that as well, you know, I was just really, really interested in kind of exploring the slow sort of moral erosion that happens to people when we're faced with these, you know, impossible choices that we're sort of, you know, faced with on a daily basis. And sorry, to answer your question, do you mind repeating it one more time? Sorry.
No. I was just
lost my
speaking
train of
about,
thought.
you know, I feel like in films, creating a balance, especially when you are talking about two different things, two cultures, two struggles, is a little bit difficult, you know. So how did you create that balance? What was kind of the balancing act between the two?
Well, I think that, you know, I really tried to approach it from a completely, you know, three-dimensional kind of unbiased perspective. I think, you know, not to be cliched about it, it's been said before many times by people, you know, far more intelligent and you know, greater than me. But I think that, you know, we're trying to put a mirror up, you know, we're trying to really just put a mirror up to humanity and sort of show all of it, you know, and not sort of shy away from anything. And I think that, you know, I think what the film, I hope, tries to do beautifully is, you know, is to sort of really show that this isn't a polarized sort of issue, and that we're really both, you know, in our separate ways, we're all fighting, you know, at times invisible battles that nobody else can see, and really poses the question, like Kathryn just said, you know, of what would the choice that any of us would make, you know, what would that be under these, you know, sort of impossible, you know, circumstances.
And it
Kathryn,
was
let's.
also, just to add to that, we
Yeah.
you know, talking about the kind of culture differences as well. Like we had an incredible cast and crew who taught us so much that we would never have known about the cultures, you
Sure.
know, in South Africa that, you know, Tom tried to put so beautifully on the page. But until you're actually there with people who have experienced that kind of life or that kind of culture, it was super incredible to get their intake and you know, and their like details that I think bring the story so much more to life.
Yeah, because I think, you know, as a sort of fly on the wall observer, you know, there's only so far you can kind of go with your understanding as you're writing this thing in a, you know, in a room in London and whatever. And, you know, once you're there and you're in the, you know, in the midst of it with these incredible people that have, you know, that you know, live this life, you know, you know, sort of on a daily basis. It kind of reshaped and reformed a lot of things, and I think for the better.
Let's chat quickly about the media rollout for this movie. We are going to witness the local premiere at the 47th Durban International Film Festival, but what are the other plans, and what are you hoping audiences are going to respond to the most when it comes to Poacher's Moon?
So yeah, so the first stage of all of that is, like you said, the 25th of July at 2 p.m. At the Suncoast Cine Centre in Durban as part of DIFF. That's where we're having our local premiere, and we're really, really, really excited about that. And then, you know, we've just had a lot of, you know, we've had a few offers of sort of distribution and acquisition from different people, and we're just kind of heavily in kind of discussion and negotiation with them and figuring out, you know, where this is eventually gonna land up. And you know, obviously the plan is to have it, you know, be seen by as many people as possible, because I think it's a story that, you know, I hope sings to people in the way that it sings to me and to, you know, to us. And I think it's hopefully a story that can, you know, have some power of positive change. And yeah, that's kind of that's where we're at with it at the moment.
What a pleasure to be chatting to you, and we hopefully will get to see it as well right here in South Africa. Tom and Kathryn Datnow from DoDatnowFilms company chatting to us about a movie that's coming out on the 25th of July right here in South Africa at the 47th Durban Film Festival. It's called Poacher's Moon, and we're so excited and looking forward to it. It's 5:30 right now on Channel Africa. Let's get a final wrap of your